Every good thing given and every gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. In the exercise of his will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, so that we would be a kind of first fruits among his creatures. This you know, my beloved brethren, but everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. Therefore, put aside all filthiness and all that remains of wickedness. In humility, receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls. But prove yourselves doers of the word, and not merely hearers who delude themselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his natural face in a mirror. For once he has looked at himself and gone away, he has immediately forgotten what kind of person he was. But one who looks intently at the perfect law, the law of liberty, and abides by it, not having become a forgetful hearer, but an effectual doer, this man will be blessed in what he does. If everyone thinks himself to be religious, and yet does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this man's religion is worthless. Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world.
Sonia was not yet 10 years old when the soldiers came to her neighborhood and began rounding up Jews to put on trains and transport them to the camps. Her family was prepared, and they hid in their attic, awaiting the soldiers' departure, but then the German shepherds came and found them. And so they were rustled out into the street with their neighbors, where her brother and father were wrestled away and never heard from again. She and her mother were together when they were loaded on the cattle car that would take them to their first work camp, one of 4, where they would live over the next 4 years. And that final one where Sonia would all too soon watch her mother walk into the gas chamber. Some 80 years later, when Sonia speaks of this experience, an experience so filled with sorrow and grief that you would expect her to be quick to anger, her story is full of love and compassion for her fellow campmates, for the mother and brother and father she lost, for her husband who survived a similar experience. But never anger. Never hate. As a matter of fact, she spends her waking hours speaking and teaching just the opposite. Never hate is her theme. For Sonia speaks of love and tolerance and inclusion in classrooms and on stages, and most frequently in her little tailor shop in Kansas City, Kansas. The shop that she and her husband built from scratch when they immigrated to that town after the Holocaust. In that little tailor shop where 87-year-old Sonia shows up to work each day, well, maybe not on the Sabbath day, but each work day, you can run into a girl with dreadlocks who's coming in to ask about accessories, alongside a man in an Armani suit worried about the fit before his big presentation. And Sonia will measure and tweak his suit while she talks with this young girl, so different from the man, about which brooch will be just perfect to make her outfit sparkle, as the man worries about his upcoming meeting. The two begin talking, for in Sonia's shop, everyone is included, including the little blonde girl who comes in to say, "I can't afford a dress off the rack." And Sonia says, "Don't worry, we have lots here for you to choose from. Your prom will be beautiful." In that little shop, Sonia welcomes and includes everyone, for she learned that welcome and inclusion matter. And so she insists that everyone in her shop do the same. The eclectic clientele who come and go into that shop, to have Sonia solve their tailoring needs and their costume jewelry desires, they look more like a crowd I would expect at the LA airport than at a Kansas City tailor shop. Every customer is treated like a 5-star VIP, but I think mostly they come to hear Sonia tell her stories and teach her lessons of love and tolerance and inclusion. She is quick with a smile and generous with her hugs, but she's also feisty and humorous, still witty and happy to laugh with her customers, and equally willing to lecture her children and her grandchildren, all in their 60s by now, well, her children, because she's a good Jewish mother and lecturing is part of the job description. Never hate this tiny woman of about 4'9". She says it over and over again as she speaks of her experience in the death camps. Never hate. This woman of a huge heart says, as she speaks of the cruel soldiers and her frightening childhood, filled with sorrow and violence and fear. Never hate. A mantra that clearly has shaped her life. For Sonia leads with love. Her granddaughter named the documentary film about her life Big Sonia, about this little 4'9" feisty woman. Because this little woman leads such a life of big love. Big Sonia. She leads her customers with love. She leads her children and grandchildren with love. She leads her students and her community with love. Not just in words, but in action, as she lovingly tailors their clothes or listens deeply to stories of their problems at school. Now, Sonia has probably never read this letter to James, since she is Jewish and would read the Hebrew scriptures. But she lives these words each and every day. She listens patiently and deeply, whether it's a clothing problem or a problem with the family. When she speaks carefully and thoughtfully and slowly, thinking before she starts chattering away, as if she is weighing every single word before she speaks a word. And when she reflects on the terrors she endured as a child, she is slow to anger, as James advises, living her truth to never hate. These 3 steps that James outlines for all of us are steps that can help us to lead lives of big love, as Sonia does. To make our world a world of big love, a world much in need of big love. Be quick to hear. Be quick to listen. That's step 1. Be slow to speak. Slow to respond. That's step 2. And be slow to anger. That's step 3. Sounds so easy when James writes it. But I don't know about you, but I do not live this 3-step process very successfully. Oh, but when I do, listen and see what a difference listening can make. Slow down your speaking, and listening gets a whole lot easier. Slow down your anger, and hate gets a whole lot harder. These 3 steps can help us to lead and live the words that Jesus teaches us to live by. You remember that great commandment? I think Dan preached on it last week. Shall I pop quiz you? Love God and love your neighbor as yourself with all your heart and mind and soul and strength. See, I let you off the hook. Jesus follows that up in parables by telling us what James tells us: care for widows and orphans, care for the least and the last. Jesus really meant these lessons, you know. He wasn't just talking for the heck of it. He died for the importance of these words. And his brother James would have known this. My guess is he probably had to hear it a lot when he was growing up from Big Brother Jesus. So it's no wonder that this letter attributed to James unfolds for us how we can actually transform Jesus' words into actions, so that we become doers of the word and not merely hearers of the word. We're going to delve into this letter for the next 3 weeks, so you can go home and read it today. It's not a long letter. I promise it's not a big reading assignment. But we're going to delve into it so we can really absorb, what does it mean to live the Great Commandment? What does it mean to lead with love? Listen. First and foremost, be quick to hear. Be open to what you hear. Slow down your speaking. Hesitate before talking. Wait before responding. And then slow down your anger. Calm down your frustration, even in Orange County traffic. Just saying. Think before lashing out. That gives you time to pray for the Spirit's guidance, even when anger is bubbling up. The great commandment to love is a much easier thing when we put listening front and center. Listen to God's Spirit. Listen to your own spirit. And listen to others as they speak and yearn to be heard. Slow down our speaking so that Spirit can guide our words and slow us down from speaking in haste or acting out of impatience. And then slow down the anger. When you feel that anger welling up inside, you know the moment, right? The frustration is bubbling, the anger's coming. You want to, somebody's going to get it, right? James says, no, slow it down. Take a deep breath. Invite Spirit to help you untangle your anger before you start expressing it hatefully or cruelly. Slow down your anger and let love mingle into your anger so that you remember you probably actually love the person you're angriest with. And anger expressed with love is a whole lot more productive and relationship building than anger expressed with frustration or hate. Let love lead the way, and everything changes for the better. So in addition to reading the letter of James, I'm just realizing I'm giving you a lot of homework because I have another homework assignment this week. I want you to try this week to take 1 or 2 or all 3 of these steps that James advises us to take as you walk through your days in the week ahead. And see if in taking 1 or 2 or 3 of these steps, it's a little easier to lead with love. When you listen first, when you speak slowly, and when you slow down your anger. Whatever steps we can take to lead with love will help our families, our church, our communities, and our world to be the loving communities we are meant to be. Sonia's store closed last year because the shopping mall had gone bankrupt and her store was the last one standing. But Sonia, she's only 87, so she wasn't done leading with love. she opened a store in a strip mall nearby. So, get to work, guys. She's rehung the picture of her husband who helped her build that shop before his death. She's piled in all of her costume jewelry and her secondhand dresses and her swaths of fabric and tailoring supplies. And each day she opens those doors to welcome whoever wanders in with a smile, a listening heart, and a loving word, finalizing every transaction with a warm hug. That's Big Sonia. But Big Sonia isn't the only person who's trying to lead with love. Many in this room, we are trying to lead with love. And there's someone here at Community Church who confessed to us last week that he's been focused for many months on seeing the world and acting in the world from the center of agape love. Now, if you were here last week, you know that he talked with you about that, but he didn't get to finish his sermon, and so I'd like to invite Dan Winton up here to speak a few words of how he experienced your agape love last week, and then have him conclude today's sermon with the conclusion we missed last week from Dan.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, last week I had what Dorothy called a little episode of dehydration, and after last week I vowed I'm not going to wear a tie again. At least August and September. But I wanted to thank Dorothy and Kimberly and Jamie for the help they provided. Fortunately, it wasn't anything more serious than dehydration, and felt fine Sunday afternoon. I felt fine today, and so thank you. Picking up on Mary's sermon today, as well as one of the aha moments I had was with Mary's sermon that was given on April 15th, focusing on John's first epistle about love. And the reason why it was an aha moment was I realized that tradition has John being a disciple of Jesus. He is the Apostle John. He was there listening to Jesus. He was there living those 3 years with Jesus. And the message that came through to John 50 years later was the focus on love, or what I like to say, agape love. I have a tough time when people talk about love, differentiating between eros love, which is romantic love or brotherly love, or agape love. So I like when Mary says love, I hear agape love. And agape love is a type of love Sonia was practicing. That love with compassion. That love in which you are kind. And as I mentioned, I think I mentioned last week, there was a author by the name of Wayne Dyer who had written a book. And in that book, he had said, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. So what I have been trying to do since Mary's sermon was looking at everything through agape eyes. That is what Sonia was doing when she was interfacing with everyone. She was looking at them through agape eyes. She was looking at them with compassion. She was not looking at them with hatred or looking at them and what's in it for me. She was living agape love. And when Mary mentioned Sonia's dress shop, I couldn't help but think that that could be Community Church. What if we each practiced agape love going forward, reflecting on Mary's sermon today? We practice agape love as to each other, to visitors and to neighbors. Having been a member of Community Church since 1996, I've been through a few of our episodes. And I can't help but think, what if we had practiced agape love when we had those big decisions? Decisions may not have changed, but what would have happened if we were loving with respect to someone we may disagreed with who had a difference of opinion than we had, rather than lashing out at them? What if we, as Sonia did, took the time to listen? Where are you coming from? As opposed to reacting to them, saying, you're wrong. He's right. The world would have been different, I believe. I pray that as we continue forward with the next chapter of Corona Mars Community Church, that we will be known as a faith community where everyone was kind to one another, loved one another, and welcomed visitors and neighbors as Jesus would have done with agape love, as God would have us to do. Practicing agape love has allowed me to venture further from my base, my security blanket. And to paraphrase Psalm 23, through agape love I have come to trust and have joyful confidence in that good shepherd who dwells within me and each one of us, who leads me beside calm waters along the right path, who restores my soul, and who was with me in the valley of darkness, safely guiding me through that valley. Thank you.
Will you join me in praying the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.